Hello.
Hello. Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Wonderful, thank you.
It's such an honor to have you on Intersect News.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for considering me.
I find you really inspirational because, as well as being a professional musician, you are known for befriending the KKK, despite being Black. What I find amazing is that you go out of your way every day to invite your enemies to your table, but you don't seem to give it much weight in a way that it comes naturally to you. How do you think like that? Why did it start?
Well, I would say that it has to do a lot with my background.
Mm.
My parents were U.S. Foreign Service, so I grew up traveling a lot overseas and living in different countries. I was an American Embassy kid. So I'm 62 years old now, but I started traveling at age 3 in 1961.
Oh.
And you go to a country, you're there for 2 years, and then you come back home here to the States.
Mm-hmm.
You're here for a few months, maybe a year, and then back to another country for 2 years. So back and forth, back and forth. So traveling with my kids, as a kid, myself with my parents, and then traveling now as an adult musician performing around the world. I have been, when you total those two sets of travels together, I've been in a total of 57 different countries on 6 continents. So even starting at a young age, I was exposed to a multitude of people from all over the world, different ethnicities, different religions, cultures, etc. And that's what I grew up around. So I found it and I never had any problems,
Mm-hmm.
until I would come home. Every time I'd come home back to my own country, I had a problem.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I
so
see. Do you think
you
that,
know,
sorry,
go ahead.
that's really, I think at that time that would have been very rare, but nowadays with access to the internet, with Facebook, with in social media, you can be connected to whoever you want, basically. Like if you want to be connected to kids in India, then you can go and connect with them. There's nothing stopping you. But in those times,
Right.
obviously, it would have been really hard.
Yeah, exactly. And then, but here's the mentality here in the United States. If I was a supremacist, or a racist, and I had the internet, even if I had it back then, I would choose not to connect with people in India. I would only connect with people who look like me, perhaps people in Europe or something like that. So people make their choices, but when you are living in a country and this is your country and you are expected to obey the laws of your country, you're expected to fight for your country if there's a war, then you should be entitled to all the amenities of your country, and not be a second-class citizen or something like that within your own country. So it bothered me a great deal that I was being treated better by people in Africa, Asia, and Europe than I was being treated in my own country.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I want to find out why. Why do you hate me? All you see is this, the color of my skin. And that makes you make all kinds of judgments about me that you don't even know me? How can you hate me when you don't know me? So, I've been looking for the answer to that question. And now, as I said, when I was overseas, I was around a lot of different people, even as a young kid. So when I was in school, like I say, in elementary school, my kids were from India, Japan, France, Germany, Italy, Nigeria. Anybody who had an embassy there, all of their children went to the same school.
I see.
Right? Now, this I'm talking about in the 1960s, long before you were born, even before your parents were born, right? So I'm old. But then when I would come home, I would be either in an all-Black school or a Black and white school, meaning I was in either the still segregated school or the newly integrated school. And there was not the amount of diversity in my classroom here that I had overseas. So I'm being serious. Literally, when I was overseas, I was living a good 10 years into the future. I was ahead of my time because that multicultural scenario had yet to come here.
Yeah.
So you know, today if you walk into a classroom, especially in a city, it's multicultural. Maybe
Yeah.
out in the country it's different, but so I was already doing that in the 1960s.
That
You
is
know,
amazing. I also think every single video I've seen of you, you're always happy and positive, even though you're surrounded by, like, as you said, very naive and ignorant people. How do you do it?
because you know what, one of the biggest killers of people is stress. And I don't want to be stressed out. I mean, there are enough things out there besides racism, you know, that are always stressful. And, you know, you may not be able to change those things. But racism is something that was created. You know, you create yourself. You're not born with it. So if it can be learned, guess what? It can be unlearned. So, you know, our society, your society, anybody's society, can only become one of two things. Number one, it can become that which you sit back and watch it become, or it can become that which you stand up and you make it become. So you have to answer a question. And the question is, do I want to sit back and see what my society becomes? Or do I want to stand up and make my society become what I want to see? So I've chosen the second option.
See, with our generation, even if we do try to talk or say something, we're often not heard or cast aside because we're just children, which is really annoying. But we can't really do much except from go on social media, get advice, and kind of bide our time until we can make a difference, which I'm sure
Yes,
everyone finds really frustrating. What would you
sure
suggest?
it does. Well, what you do is this: you learn everything you can as a child.
Okay.
Okay, and because there will come that time, you know, when you're 18 or 21 or whatever the age to be able to do things is, in, you know, in your city or your country, and then you do those things. But you learn as much as you can about everybody.
Okay.
Everybody that you can. Travel as much as you can. See things. Because you know you're right. You know, sometimes the older generations don't want to hear from younger people, even though younger people have some great ideas. You know, and that's a problem because old people, they get stuck in their ways. You know, and that has to change. And you know, the future is yours. The future is going to be what you make it. I happen to have had a great, you know, childhood with my parents. I mean, other than some of the racist things, you know, that happened to me, and they still happen. You know, racism is still here, but my parents exposed me to a lot and gave me tools by which I could navigate through society. So what I try to do is bring some of that enlightenment to other people. And in many cases, for me, it has worked, which is why some of these Klan people have renounced their beliefs and become friends. Others, you know, some of them will go to their grave being hateful and violent and racist. There's just no changing them. You know, they're stuck in that mentality. But you know what? Even people like that, you don't give up on them. If anybody is willing to sit down and have a conversation with you, there is an opportunity to plant a seed. Now, just planting the seed is the first step.
Yeah.
But then you got to follow up with watering the seed, giving it nutrients so that it blooms. And I'm going to tell you how I go through that process. For example, you know, when I meet some of these people, as soon as they see me, their wall goes up because I am the enemy. I'm a black person. They don't like me. Just from looking at me. All right. If I was white and they didn't know me, I'm okay. But just being black, the wall goes up. They're on, you know. So they're gonna, you know, insult me. They're gonna say things about me that are derogatory, that they believe. They believe these things because they believe they are superior. That's why they're called supremacists, right? So I've been told that just because of the color of my skin, that I'm a criminal, you know, that I'm prone to crime. And the reason being, all I have to do to prove that is to look at our prison system here in the United States. He says there are more black people in prison than white people. Well, he's right. He's right about that. But that's only a yeah, that's only a half truth,
Exactly.
because he is not considering the inequality of our judicial system. He's also not considering the fact that there are plenty of Black and white people who are poor, who don't even belong in prison. They may be innocent,
Exactly.
but because they did not have adequate legal representation, that's where they are. All right. But what he sees fits his narrative. So one's perspective is one's reality.
Yeah.
So he sees more Black people in prison, therefore Black people must be criminal. They're more criminally minded than white people. And then he tells me that that Black people are inherently lazy. We don't want to work. We prefer to scam the government welfare system, and all we want are free handouts because we don't want to get a job.
How does
And
this
then he tells
your blood boil? Like when you hear these things, especially at you from your like face, how do you not immediately
2 feet in front, 2 feet in front of me? He said, so I'm gonna tell you how to handle that.
Okay.
It's very simple. It's so simple you're gonna fall over. Okay. Now then he tells me that that Black people are born with a smaller brain than white people. White people have a larger brain, and because of the larger brain size, there is more room for intelligence. Because of the small brain size, there's very little room. So that's why white people are more intelligent than Black people. And I asked him, well, why do you say that? And he says, well, all you have to do, Mr. Davis, is look at the SAT scores of Black students. He's right. Black students tend to not score as high as white students. But because we're not giving equal opportunities in education, okay? So, but again, he sees this and it fits what he thinks. So he's not considering the other things. Okay, so now you asked me a very good question. How does my blood not boil when I'm listening to these things and the man is sitting, less than 3 feet in front of me? All right. Here's how you handle this. This is very, very important, and too many people don't understand this, but it's very simple. Number one, is what he is saying to me offensive? Absolutely, it's offensive. Am I offended by it? Should I be offended by it? Absolutely not. Not. Why? Because what he is saying is not true. What he is saying is not true. Why should I be offended by a lie? All right. Furthermore, this man doesn't even know me. He just met me 5 or 10 minutes ago. Yeah, and he's attacking me like this. Why should I be offended by somebody who knows nothing about my background? All he sees is my skin color, and he's making these assertions about me and doesn't even know me. So I'm not going to be offended by a lie. Now, if my mother or father told me that I was lazy and that I'm, prone to crime, maybe I might take some heed with that because they know me, right? They brought me into this world, they raised me, so they should know me. But somebody who doesn't know me, no, no, okay. I'm not gonna be offended by that. And then, and here's what you do. Even though he's attacking you verbally, don't let your emotions get the best of you, all right? Because they're used to pushback. Normally when somebody's, if I said to you, I don't like girls with dark hair, I like blondes, blah, blah, so I'm attacking you. The normal reaction would be to push back. So, I could have said, he is used to somebody saying, no, you're the criminal. You're the one burning crosses in people's yards and bombing people's churches and hanging people from trees and da, 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 So that would be the normal pushback. That's what he is used to. So I didn't do that. I let him speak. I let him have his platform and I listened. And that threw him off his game. Okay. Because that's not what he's used to. He's not used to a Black person listening to him get it all out. He's used to this contention. All right. Okay. So I'm not kissing his feet or anything. I'm just giving him a platform and listening to him. So that threw him off his game. And because I gave him that opportunity to speak and get it all out, that wall that was up began coming down because he's not having to fight. So that's my opportunity to plant the seed. You cannot plant the seed when the wall is up.
Do you agree with that?
Right, the seed will hit the wall and bounce off.
Yeah.
You got to get the wall down and then plant the seed on the other side. Okay. All right. So then when the wall is down and he has had his piece, then it's my turn to speak. And because I let him speak and did not attack him, now he's willing to listen to me. I gave him something, he's going to give me something. So instead of attacking him and telling him that he's wrong, instead of going on the offense, I go on the defense. I defend myself instead of attacking him. I said, well, you know, the fact of the matter is, I don't have a criminal record. Nobody in my family has a criminal record. I have never been on welfare. Nobody in my family has ever been on welfare. As far as the SAT scores go, guess what? I went to college, I got a bachelor's degree. My mother and father both have master's degrees, and my father is working on his PhD. So, you know, I knew that he barely made it out of high school. He never went to college. I have more education in my little finger than he and his whole Klan group have put together. But I'm not going to throw that and attack him. I'm just going to defend myself.
Do you think education is key then? Because it does strike me
absolutely
people my age are joining the KKK or leading climate change movements that are global, and there's a lot of in between, but yet there are so many people, of my friends included, who don't know a thing about systemic racism in the UK, in America, or generally across the world. But they're not taught it by school. Our schools don't teach racism because it's, I don't know, too offensive or...
It's taboo to talk about.
Yeah.
And that taboo needs to be lifted. Yes, it should be taught. Because you know what? Here's the problem. Where are you living now? Where are you?
I live in the UK.
In the UK. Okay. So here in this country, racism exists.
Yep.
Also, discrimination against women exists as well. Here in the United States, even today in the 21st century, in 2020, women still make 79 cents on a man's dollar for the same amount of work. They're being paid less, which is discriminatory just because they're women. If you do the job, then you should get paid the same amount as a man doing the same job.
That does make sense.
Yeah, but we're not only are we a racist society, we're also a male chauvinistic society. Right? So we discriminate against women. So here's the problem with schools.
Okay.
Schools are great for academic education, but they're not so great for empirical education. Empirical education is what you get through experience. So when you are in the school and on the school property, you are treated equally. When I was in school, I had the same opportunities as any white kid. All right. I read the same books. If there was a play that we're going to put on, I could audition for the play. I could get a role just like anybody else. I was treated as an equal in my school. And all the kids were, whether you were Asian, Indian, you know, white, black, whatever, you were treated equally within the school. But the school did not prepare you for when you leave the school. They prepared you academically, but they didn't tell you, hey, Daryl, listen, I want you to work as hard as you can. I want you to try to get straight A's on all your classes. You know, always give 100%. But when you leave here and you graduate, people are probably not going to hire you because you're black. And you know, and they're not going to tell you, hey, Datta, you know, when you graduate, you're only going to make a little bit less than a man for doing the same job. But we want you to work hard here in school so you can get the best job you can get. Yeah. You know, they don't prepare you to face these things. They don't tell you, you know, as a female, when you get out in the when you graduate, you get out in the work world, you might be sexually harassed at your job by men. They don't tell you these things because in school you're treated equally. But that education needs to be there because school is supposed to prepare you to navigate in society when you graduate. Yeah. And yes, they give you a lot of good academic information, but they also need to give you that empirical information. What you're going to face. You're going to face racism. You're going to face sexism. You're going to face, you know, this, that, and the other. Prepare those people so they know how to deal with it. And that's the problem. So education is very key.
That's what I think is amazing with social media, because the people who want to can go out there, and there are resources that you can find at the touch of the button. Like, it's not an excuse anymore that your parents have never encountered racism, so you don't know what it is. Or my parents are racist, so I have no clue why races should be the same, because you can go and find out in like 5 seconds. It doesn't take that long. But at the same time, the internet is a very dangerous source because it's by people. So it's not checked. Yeah. It's not, if you want to, you can find something that completely contradicts something, which is called confirmation bias. When you look at, say, 5 different articles, and the one sentence you find in one of them is slightly off, so you decide that every single one of those articles are useless and you're never going to look at that point of view again, which I think, white supremacists do, which is what's so dangerous with racism and everything. But also activists do that a lot. So if there's, say, anti-feminist articles on the internet and I have a look at them, I will catch myself thinking, this is stupid, ignore that, ignore that, ignore that. Wait, this one sentence, I can turn that around and use it against them, which is so bad. And I can't stop myself doing it. So how do you stop yourself doing that?
Well, the internet is like fire. Fire can be a good thing or a bad thing. I can heat your house with fire, or I can come and I can burn your house down. So, you have to be in control, of your own line of thinking, and do the research. If everything looks, to be in order, still research it. Find out from another source. Get another opinion here and there. All right. If something looks amiss, also find that out, because there could be 5 things that are wrong and one thing that has some truth, but it could be that one thing is true and those other 5 things are wrong, or vice versa. Yeah. So we must all go on a case-by-case basis and do the research. That's where the academics come in school, because we learn how to do research. We learn how to, well, in my day, you had to go to the library and look up stuff in the encyclopedia. Now we just go on the internet and get it. Yeah. But we're taught how to research stuff and write papers on it. Yes. So that's what we should do, even when we come out of school. If you go on the internet and somebody is saying this and somebody else is confirming it, and that person is confirming it, does not mean that it's true because 3 people confirmed it. You have to do your own research and weigh in on both sides.
Yeah, there is lots of people are saying get information from, say, a Black person about racism or a woman about feminism, which I think is great. But a lot of people, when they talk about issues that kind of fight their identity, they get very emotional. Like in your documentary, the Black Lives Matter activists who you were talking to, I think they got emotional because it's their identity. They are fighting for a better life, and no fault of your own, but you are kind of saying there is another way of going about it rather than just fighting. How do you not get caught in the emotional kind of bringing up trauma side of things?
Listen, anytime you want change, there's going to be trauma, and there's going to be people who all they do is just talk about it. They want change, but then when they see change happening, they freak out. Okay. After high school, before going to college, I worked for a moving company.
Okay.
We have these trucks, we go to people's houses and move them, say from Washington, D.C. to Florida, whatever, right? I saw this many times. I only did it for a couple of months, before I went away to college. Some buddies and I went and got a job at the moving company. Let me tell you something. People were happy to move. They're looking forward to moving to their new house. It's bigger, it has this, it has that, and they're looking forward to it. And then you go to their house that they've lived in for 30 years or whatever, and you start picking up their furniture to put it in the truck. They start freaking out, because they realize they're looking forward to the move, but when the day finally comes, they're all, the anxiety kicks in, and because they're being uprooted, and change, sometimes will stress you and cause trauma. let me give you an example.
Okay.
And I don't mean this in a derogatory way, because it happens with men also,
Okay.
but more so with women. Okay. You find these women, and perhaps maybe you know some of your girlfriends or things like that, who are dating somebody or who are married to somebody, and the boyfriend or husband treats them very badly. Maybe they're involved in an abusive relationship, both physically and emotionally. They keep beating on them or whatever, and you keep telling them, look, this is not love. You need to get out of this relationship.
Yeah.
Eventually he's going to kill you. And they stay in it. They stay in it. They stay in it. And so finally, why don't they leave? Because they are more accustomed to this bad treatment than have to go out and find somebody new and start all over again. So they'd rather stay with what's familiar. All right.
I see.
So then finally, the guy almost kills her. And she says, okay, enough. And she finally gets out of the relationship and leaves. And then she gets involved in another relationship. And what is that other relationship? The same as she had before. She goes into another, because that's what she knows. That's what she's comfortable. Right? That cycle needs to be broken. Okay. So this is what we have to do. We have to put our emotions aside for a moment. We have the ability to think emotionally, and we have the ability to think logically. And we have to use each one of those abilities. When it's time for logic, let the logic make the decision more so than the emotion. Yeah. If it's time for emotion, let the emotion make the decision. For example, let's say I'm an emotional person, right? And I see a house burning down. Okay. And there's a baby in there. My emotion is going to say, go in there and get that baby out of the house. I'm not going to think logically that, there's a child in there. I must, I feel emotion for that baby. And I go in and I do that. All right. Now logic would say, okay, let's say I'm an alcoholic. Okay. And I've been an alcoholic for a long time, and I've worked very hard to not be an alcoholic anymore, right? I've gone to the meetings, whatever, and now I'm 10 years sober. So I start my own business. I have a restaurant. I'm doing very well, and then this COVID hits, right? And my business gets shut down. I'm home. I can't work. I'm not making any money. The bank is wanting their money for my building where I have the restaurant. I can't pay them because I'm not working. I'm getting depressed. And so my emotion is saying, go have yourself a drink and forget about your troubles. That's the emotion. But the logic is saying, no. You lost your business, be logical. Yeah. Don't throw away 10 years of sobriety. You can rebuild your business when the virus is over. Put the bottle down. That's the logic.
That is great for us, but I do think that also works reciprocally for, say, white supremacists, because for you, for example, they see you and they're like, actually, this man isn't that bad. He seems like a normal person who doesn't fit our image of a black guy, and we could be friends with him, like you've done with so many people. But isn't there a danger of them thinking that you're the one exception to the rule?
Yes, exactly. And I have the cure for that, because yes, that will happen. Okay. And what I do is this, I'm not fearful of these people. I know what I'm dealing with. Yeah. And yes, there can be danger, and there has been danger. There have been times when I've had to hurt somebody. Okay. That's not pleasant, but if somebody puts their hands on you, you're going to fight back. Yeah. And so, there have been those occasions. Fortunately, they've been few for me. Okay. Most of them have been, cordial, etc. But there is that danger. All right. So when I begin to trust somebody and I see this person is not really posing a threat to me, that's when I began to invite some of my Black friends, some of my Jewish friends, some of my other white friends who don't believe like they believe to come and meet this person. Because I don't want them to think, oh, Daryl's okay for a Black guy. It's all those other Black people out there that are the problem. You're exactly right. So that's why you must expose them, to other people who feel the same way you do, so that they see Daryl's not the exception. Their way of thinking is the exception.
Okay. That must be quite a revelation for them to have.
Yeah, it is. And when they finally give it up, they're like, why was I involved in this in the first place?
Yeah. Do you think that there's a lot about Trump right now, especially with Corona and race and Black Matter happening right now? And at one point he said he wanted to label Antifa as a terrorist organization.
He does not have that authority.
yeah. But still, he's the president. He has some voice over what happens, right? But the KKK at the moment is called an extreme domestic group, which is not a terrorist organization. Do you think from being in the KKK?
I'm not in the KKK, but
I know, but kind of like very, very close to, and knowing a lot of people from the KKK, that it is a terrorist organization.
Yes, I do. Yes, okay. Absolutely.
How do you feel about being friends with people in a terrorist organization then?
I don't have a problem with it, but because I'm not agreeing with them.
Okay.
I'm working to show them a better way.
Okay.
And let them, it's like, look, there are people who are in gangs. There are people who are criminals. We work with those people to try to show them a better way so that they can live their lives and be productive instead of being destructive. And so you have to get to know them. And how is somebody going to trust you if you're not friendly with them? If they're always perceiving you as their enemy, why would they change? Why would they listen to you and change? I'm genuine. I respect you as a human being. I don't respect what you believe in, but we can sit down and talk. We can have lunch. We can discuss it. Okay.
Yeah.
You have, I don't know where you stand on certain things. Like, for example, you may have your own opinions on abortion or on global warming or whatever, but you know people, maybe even some of your friends or family who disagree with your opinion.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right. But you can sit down and talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it's for me, it's the same thing. Now, you mentioned the people in the film who were giving me the hard time, the Black people who look like me, right? That is a common thing with people. It's basically ignorance, right? Because they have not been exposed to the things that I've been exposed to. We all live in the same country. They want the same things I do. They want the same things I do. I want the same things they do, right? We have to work together to change the environment. Yeah. And there is more than one way to fight racism, because there are different kinds of racism. There's systemic racism, institutionalized racism, individual racism, all kinds. So you have to fight it legally, you have to fight it systemically, you got to fight it on an individual basis. None of these things are wrong, but we have to coordinate and cooperate together. You can't say you're doing it wrong. This is the only way you should do it. You should, be with us. No. But I can tell you something. White supremacists and Black supremacists, which you were seeing an example of in the film.
Okay.
They think the same way. A white supremacist, if he or she were to see a white person with a Black person, like an interracial couple, the white supremacist would hate the white person more than the Black person, because you look like me and you are a race traitor. You have sold out your race. Okay. And so they hate you more than the Black person. You were seeing the exact same thing in the film. They considered me a race traitor because I was sitting down and being friendly with the enemy. I'm fully aware of who they are. And see, that's what causes my blood not to boil, because I have my emotions in check. I know who I am. Yeah. They were becoming very emotional because their emotions were not in check. and therefore they could never do what I do. They can march up and down the street with their megaphone in front of the police department and say, no justice, no peace, enough is enough, etc. And we need that.
Yeah.
We need that. But I'll guarantee they could not sit down one-on-one with their enemy, who they considered is the police. They could not have a conversation and listen to one another without this kind of thing, because you saw that happen. It's even more so with me because I look like them. So I'm a sellout. I'm a race traitor. You know, you're treating the Klan better than you're treating Black people. You know, I was hearing all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
You only saw 8 minutes. You only saw 8 minutes in the movie. Okay. That scene went on for an hour. It went on for an hour. It almost got physical. Now, I will say this. About a year later, the young guy, he reached out to me and said, hey, you know, I've been seeing you, you know, I've listened to some of your interviews. I understand what's happening. Let's get together and talk.
Okay.
So we got together, we had dinner, and the young guy and the older guy, and everything was good.
Okay.
And I did some things with the older guy, and then he fell out again. He got emotional again and went off on me. So, you know, it can go back and forth. You know, that's a problem with emotions. Sometimes we need to think logically, other times we need to think emotionally.
Yeah, especially when your opponent is getting very emotional. It's hard for you to not fight back with emotion, because it's kind of like matching the level, because you feel like you're not doing as much to support your point if you don't start crying, if the other person is crying, for example. But that's very fighting fire with fire kind of approach, and I do need to start changing that. I also, in your research about the KKK, have you found out anything that would surprise the rest of the world that's not really known about?
Yes, a lot of things, but the most important thing is this: people can change.
Okay.
People can change. You know, you probably grew up the same way I did, hearing things like a tiger does not change its stripes. A leopard does not change its spots. We all have heard similar things, right? So why would I think that a Klansman would change his robe and hood? You know, they probably don't change. That's just how they are. But that's not true. A tiger can change his stripes. A leopard can change his spots in this case. A Klansman can change his robe and hood. You know, so it's important to know that people can change if you're willing to put in the time. It takes a lot of patience because, you know, they didn't come to this attitude overnight.
Yeah.
You know, they grew into it and they've been in it for years. So it's like, you know, if you put on weight, you don't put on 100 pounds overnight. You know, you put it on over time.
Yeah.
But then of course you want to lose it by tomorrow. That's not going to happen. You know, you have to lose it over time as well. So when somebody has developed an attitude, they're not going to just change it overnight. You know, you have to work with them, be patient. And that's how, you know, you expose them and educate them. Let me tell you something. Ignorance creates fear.
Okay.
We fear the things that we do not understand, those things of which we are ignorant.
Yeah.
All right. And if we do not address that ignorance, I mean, that fear will escalate and create hatred and anger because we hate the things that frighten us.
Okay.
So if we don't address that hatred and anger, that will escalate and create destruction. We want to destroy the things that we hate because we're angry now. And why do we hate them? Because we're afraid of them. But guess what? At the end of the day, they may have been harmless and we were simply ignorant. All right. And I can give you an example. This is true with adults. It's true with children.
Okay. Sometimes
I speak to little kids even, all right, in middle school or whatever. And I'll be talking to them just casually, like I'm talking to you. And I say, hey, there's a snake under your chair. All of a sudden, I'll yell that, and I'll point at the floor, you know, between somebody's legs in the front row. And just at my suggestion that there is a snake crawling around under this person's chair, all these kids in the class scream and throw their legs up in the air, even the ones 5 rows back, right? And then they realize, there's no snake, they don't know why I said it, and they start laughing and stuff.
Yeah.
And I say, listen, why did you scream? Why did you throw your legs up in the air? And they all will say, I hate snakes. I'm afraid of snakes. Well, there's your fear. There's your hatred. And I say, well, why do you hate snakes? Why are you afraid of snakes? Oh, because they're slimy. They're poisonous. Well, now there's your ignorance. If you ever touch a snake is not slimy, right? And they're not all are poisonous. Some are good snakes. So there's your ignorance. Ignorance creates the fear, which creates the hatred. So then check this out. I say to them, okay, we know there's no snake under your chair. I was just joking. But let's just say there really was a snake under your chair.
Okay.
What would you want me to do about it? You know what they say? Kill it. Kill it. There's your destruction.
Yeah, that's not the way to go about things.
Exactly.
No.
Exactly.
But how would you suggest people start curing their ignorance?
Okay, here's how you do it. All right. If you work for a company, or police department, whatever, store, here's the thing. I just gave you the model. Ignorance, on top of ignorance is fear. On top of fear is hatred and anger. On top of that is destruction.
Yeah.
Most people want to start at the top and work down. That works in a corporate structure or departmental thing. If the people at the top are loose, the people on the floor are going to be loose because it's trickle down. You set the example at the top.
Yeah.
If the management at the top is tight, all your workers down below on the floor, they're going to be tight. They're going to be good doing their job.
Yeah.
Right? Because it trickles down by example. That works in that kind of structure. But when you're talking about racism, you must work from the bottom up, not top down. All right?
Okay.
Forget about the destruction at the top. Once something is destroyed, it is not coming back. George Floyd is destroyed. He is not coming back.
No.
The next level down is the hatred and the anger. Forget about that.
Okay.
That's just a symptom. The next level down is the fear. Forget about that. That too is a symptom. Go down to the bottom, the root cause. The root cause is the ignorance. If you can cure the ignorance, then there's nothing to fear, because you fear that of which you are ignorant. You fear what you don't know. Okay? If you cure the ignorance, then you do know, and therefore there's nothing to fear. With nothing to fear, there's nothing to hate. With nothing to hate, there's nothing to be angry about. With nothing to be angry about, there's nothing to destroy. So here's the good thing. We can cure ignorance. The cure for ignorance is exposure and education. But we spend too much time starting at the top with destruction. Don't worry about that. Start here, all right? It's like if you have cancer in your bone, you don't put a cream on top or a Band-Aid on top. You got to go down to the bone.
Yeah.
With the chemo or the radiation, right? That's where the ignorance is.
Okay.
And see, there's a difference between ignorance and stupidity. Some people think that that ignorance and stupidity are synonymous. I don't, and here's how I define it.
Okay.
An ignorant person is someone who makes the wrong choice or a bad decision because he or she does not have the facts or the proper information to make a good choice or the correct decision.
Okay.
All right. If you give them that information, then you have alleviated their ignorance. A stupid person is someone who has the facts and they still make the wrong decision. All right. So for example, let's say I have a room, right? And I paint all the walls in the room. And now the walls are wet. I do not put up any signs that say wet paint, stay off the walls. So anybody coming into that room is ignorant that the walls are wet.
Yeah.
I don't mean ignorant in a derogatory sense. I mean, like, they're unaware. Exactly. So they don't know. They come in the room, they might lean up against the wall, and now they have paint on their clothes. because they didn't know, right? I can cure that ignorance with education. I can put up signs that say, wet paint, stay off the walls, gather in the center of the room. I just painted the walls 10 minutes ago. I can stand in the doorway and I can tell each person coming in that door, hey folks, gather around the center, keep off the walls, they're wet, I just painted them 5 minutes ago. All right, so now everybody has the education, everybody has the facts, everybody has the proper information to make the right choice and the correct decision. But still somebody comes and leans against the wall. And now he wants to know, why is there paint on his clothes? It's because he's stupid.
Okay, I see. Yeah, I would argue though that it might be a bit unrealistic to say that every single person who is coming through that door, you have to tell them to stay off the wall, because throughout history, I don't think you can find a civilization where there wasn't a kind of us and a them system, and that's kind of expanded to now where we have minorities and the majority. But if we try to fix racism or sexism, then do you think there's a chance there might be another them that's been made, because the us has now included people of color and women?
That us has always been there, but generally, if you fix, yes, there can be other ones, but generally, if you fix one, there's a ripple effect. The other ones get fixed. Okay. That is very common. When one thing gets fixed, other things get fixed, because they all are basically discrimination. Right. Now let me address that point here in a second. As I said, there is a cure for ignorance. That cure is education and exposure. Unfortunately, there's no cure for stupidity. If you give somebody the education and they choose not to use it, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
All right. Now, let me show you the ripple effect. Okay. You've seen all these protests, especially here in the United States, but also there in the UK, also in Berlin and Paris and everything, regarding what happened here with George Floyd. All right. These protests here in this country were primarily aimed at the police. Well, what happened? What happened?
They became more against race rather than...
Exactly. The statues started coming down. The Confederate flag came down. The Aunt Jemima syrup and Uncle Ben's rice changed their labels. The Mississippi flag, the most racist flag in our country at the time, is taking out that Confederate flag. That's the ripple effect. Like I said, when you fix one thing, other things begin to fix.
Yeah.
Okay, so eventually there will be some new discrimination, but somewhere, all right? But when one thing fixes, it fixes a lot of other things. And that's why education is so important, to fix that ignorance, and it will have that ripple effect.
Where do you see the world in 10 years once this ripple effect has gotten so big that hopefully most forms of racism have died down?
That's where I see the world. He just answered the question. But let me tell you something that a lot of people don't talk about.
Okay.
And it's because you asked me what are some of the things that I've learned that are not common knowledge. There are people who know about it, but in the media, for whatever reason, it's not being talked about. But it is true. Okay. And I'll give it to you from the U.S. standpoint. This country, the United States, was built on a two-tier society: white supremacy and slavery.
Yeah.
And over the decades, as we progressed through the years, we progressed like this. We did not progress like this. Okay. We never got the chance to get here. Every time we try to go up, we get pushed back down, right? Yeah. Okay. But with a lot of people coming into the country from different countries, especially non-white countries like the UK and Canada and Eastern Europe, people coming from South America and Mexico and West Africa, this is happening.
Okay.
Okay. The white population when I was a child was like 84, 86%. But it's gone down every census. all right? They predict rather accurately, and you can go on the internet if you want to and do the research, you'll see every time there's a census here in this country, the white population is decreasing. It is very well predicted that but around 2042, which is only 22 years from now, this country is going to be 50-50 for the first time in history. 50% white, 50% non-white. And a generation after, it's going to flip. White people will be the minority here in the United States. That's why they don't want to talk about it. And this is why you are seeing so much more racism in this country. There are plenty of white people who embrace this change. Hey, you know, this evolution, this is what happens. I don't mind, I welcome it. But there are also plenty of white people who do not want to see that. Because when you have been on the throne of power for 401 years, you do not want to get off that throne. You do not want to give up that power. Nobody wants to give up power, right? You got to fight, you know, to get somebody to give up their power. So they don't want to see that change. It's like moving somebody out of their house. They don't want to see you shift the furniture around, you know? So what's happening is you're seeing all these racist groups pop up out of nowhere. Come join us. We're going to take our country back. We're going to make America great again. You know, we're going to build that wall, keep those people out. And what the neo-Nazis here and the Ku Klux Klan, the alt-right, and different supremacist groups are telling me, Daryl, I don't want my grandkids to be brown. They call it the browning of America, white genocide through miscegenation. All right. So they don't care about people illegal here in this country from Canada or from the UK or from Eastern Europe, because if their sons and daughters were to marry one of those people, the grandkid would be white. But they don't want their son or daughter marrying somebody from Guatemala or El Salvador or Nigeria. They got a problem with that, right? So they're saying they're trying to recruit people to take our country back. So people are seeing the landscape change and they're getting all upset. And so they're going and joining these racist groups that promise to take the country back. But when the group does not do anything, they say, you know what? If the Ku Klux Klan can't do it and the neo-Nazis can't do it, I'll do it myself. And they walk into a black church, boom, 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 or into a synagogue, boom, boom, boom. Or they go to El Paso, Texas, to the Walmart where the Hispanic people shop, boom, 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 boom. Okay? These are called lone wolves, people who act on their own. Now we have intelligence agencies who have operatives who go undercover and they join these organizations, they get intelligence and they report it and they foil these plots. But you cannot infiltrate a lone wolf. It's only one person. Right? So as we get closer and closer to 2042, unfortunately, we're going to see more and more lone wolves. They are getting desperate. They're getting crazy because they realize they're losing power. And every time one of these guys gets arrested and they go and they raid his house, what do they find? They find a big cache of automatic weapons. This is for the race war. They've been calling for a race war. And so they're stockpiling these weapons. So it can get worse before it gets better. But this is what is happening in this country.
That's not a very positive note to end on.
But I'm not being pessimistic. I'm being real. I am optimistic that we will survive and we will overcome this. But there will be a lot more loss before we overcome it.
Have you answered your question? Has anyone answered your question?
Yes. I got two answers and I get them all the time. Well, the first answer is what I gave you. How can you hate me when you don't even know me? And this is when I first meet them. Well, they can hate me because I'm a criminal and I'm lazy and my brain is small.
I see.
But then when they leave and they renounce that ideology, they tell me, Daryl, I don't know why I hate it. It was ridiculous. I should not have done it. And they even apologize. So that's the second answer. They don't know why.
That's really inspirational. Thank you so much for agreeing to
Thank you.
be with me.
Anytime.
I've learned a lot and I need time to process it.
If you have any more questions, you drop me a line or something.
I would love to. Thank you so much.
Okay, and I hope you'll stay in touch.
I will.
Okay.
I will.
All right,
Bye.
take care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you so much.
Okay.